Did you have a very close bond with your troops?
Oh, absolutely. There are, some of the names I don't remember, but most of the names I do. Um, One guy in particular, his name was Robert McMullins. We went through basic training together, and unfortunately, we had to go our separate ways after basic training. But we stayed in touch for a number of years after that, and it was interesting. Our relationship was interesting, especially in light of sort of the things that are happening in America now with a lot of the racial unrest and things like that. Robert was from Alabama, um, me from Texas. We both grew up at a time where uh, pretty much it was either black people or white people, right? For example, the town that I grew up in, I was one of what, gosh, there were maybe 6 or 7 African Americans in my high school, 1,500 white kids, and that was like my whole conception of race. It was a pretty conservative town, pretty conservative part of Texas. There were definitely some issues of race that occurred in high school, and so that really sort of shaped my view of the world and shaped my view of white people going into the military. And Robert's experience was more or less the same coming out of Alabama. And so we got to basic training. We didn't really like each other. And again, I don't think that either of us could have really put a finger on why we didn't like each other. It was just sort of this thing that was shaped by where we grew up at. And I remember our drill sergeant, saying, yeah, I think this was maybe third week of basic training. We had just both been screwing up, horribly. And he said, well, the way it's going to work from here on out, if one of you gets in trouble for anything, you're both in trouble and you're both going to get punished for that. And so he sort of, I guess, forced us into this marriage where we had to learn to work together to get our task completed. But what really grew out of that was a friendship. So I remember one night coming into our squad bay, and Robert was sitting on his bed crying, and my first thought is, what is this big old MF doing, crying? He was a big guy like me, and so, but at that moment, something else occurred to me. I said, well, maybe something's happened. Be a human and go sit down next to him and ask him what happened. And so, what had happened, he had gotten a letter from his girlfriend, one of the so-called Dear John letters, saying she broke up with him, whatever.
Mm.
And he just laid his head on my shoulder and cried. And I'm just sitting there. I put my arm around him. And so you imagine these two guys, well over 6 feet tall, 250 pounds, holding each other. But from that, our friendship blossomed. And and now that I think about it, it was just, I don't know, it was just stupid that, we had all of these original ideas of each other that were based on race and false assumptions and all of this other foolishness.